Excellent. We are officially introducing our speakers today. Louise Baker and Bruce Swan are a powerhouse team. They have been attending our virtual tech talks, I think, since the get go and our community peer sessions. And the two of them together have been hosting a wonderful songwriter showcase akin to what you might find at a Folk Alliance private showcase, guerrilla showcase late in the evenings. And they've been doing this for, gosh, I think, did I see your 20th show just came up? Yeah, that's pretty amazing. They're hosting some wonderful artists, and the two of them have been taking advantage of technology in a really wonderful way. But because they both have a lot of experience in booking artists over the years, they have also come up with this wonderful topic of the streaming EPK. And I know you're all going to get a ton out of this. So without further ado, I am going to bring Louise Baker, and I've lost Bruce. He's hit. There you are.
I've
And
been
Bruce
found.
Swan. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm going to get out of your way and take it away, you two.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. If you lost Bruce, I just have to go around the corner and I could probably find him. Anyway, welcome everyone. And I want to thank Annie and her team and Farm for presenting these fabulous talks for the last, I guess, about 7 months. We hopped on to these pretty quickly so that we could learn all of the skills that we didn't know and just have some support from our peers out there. And I could see very quickly in the audience, I know many of you performers and other booking agents and industry folks. And we're just really happy to have the privilege to talk a little bit about this today. Yes, my background is that I've been a booking agent, having my own booking agency, Baker Booking, since about 2014, representing lots of different artists. And I've learned a lot, and I'm continuing to as a booking agent. I'm also a buyer of talent, having booked talent at Isis Music Hall here in Asheville for almost 5 years, up until March. So it gives me a perspective on some best practices to help artists get gigs, whether they're live or streaming. So thanks again, Annie, and to all of you for being here today. So, yeah, well, if you're a touring artist, you must have a press kit, an electronic press kit that's available on your website. The reason is talent buyers like myself in normal times have, maybe 3 to 5 minutes in their busy days to look at your materials and make a decision on who to book for a gig. And if all of your promotional and technical and financial assets, as we call them, are easy to find, there's a good chance you might get that gig and your agent's going to be really happy that it went smoothly. If we can't find those things in normal times when we're busy, we just pass and we've got to go on to the next. We simply don't have the time. So now that the most of the gigs are virtual streaming, one of the things we came up with as we take our walks in the woods here is there should be a streaming EPK. So thus we came up with SEPK. And we're just going to talk to you a little bit about what we think are the best practices to create a streaming EPK, why you need it, and so forth, and a little bit more about show etiquette. These are all the tools that we think might make it helpful for the artist out there to book future virtual gigs and hopefully not too long in the future, some in-person gigs. So, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, and a big thanks to Andy and Farm. The leadership and dedication to our all of our well-being is just so clear and apparent, and I'm grateful for the leadership. And frankly, I would not have the skill set that I've obtained over the last 7 months had it not been for the opportunity to learn. So I'm grateful for that, and it's what's making it possible for me to do my series on Tuesday, and now the ones we're expanding out onto Thursday night. So through this, I have had an income, and I'm grateful for it. As Louise said earlier, when a solicitation comes to us to book an artist, we want to be able to find out quickly what can you do, where have you done it, how have you done it. These are really important features, and that the assets are available to us quickly, conveniently, and we can use those assets to help market you. It's a big portion of these programs is how can we market you, your abilities, and what you've done to other people to expand your audience and to expand our audience. So that's really what it's all about. We're going to be going through a bunch of slides. Louise will be running those through. So I'm going to turn this back over to her. But again, our thanks for being here, and take notes, learn, ask questions.
Okay, so now I'm going to do a little screen share, which is something I learned in one of the tech talks. Let's see if I can get this started for us here. All right, everybody see that okay? And we do want to encourage you as we're going through this to just tap your little notes in there in the chat to Annie, and we'll help out at the end here. So what is an SEPK? That is your streaming electronic press kit. Why do you need it? Yes, to demonstrate that you have the skills, the tools, and the expertise to produce a professional live stream show. Where is it? Well, I suggest that it's somewhere on your website. It could be within your EPK. You might even set up a tab that says, electronic or SEPK. I think we need to claim that domain, Bruce. What do you think? But anyway, also put it in a Google folder or Dropbox folder, and that way you can share it very easily to a potential buyer. I'm going to talk a little bit about the promotional items. I think probably most of the musicians watching today already have these, but I'll just go into why these are important briefly, and what I used to look for in booking for ISIS and what we're looking for now for our streaming series. Have 2 or 3 high-resolution photos. It's nice to have one landscape, one portrait, at least 300 DPI. Make them easy to download. Sometimes you'll get on a website and you'll click on them and you just cannot find any way to download or to save this particular picture in high res. Provide a photo credit if there is one. Sometimes I like to ask for maybe a live shot too. That's fun if you have an ability to put more than one picture in your promotional items. Have a bio, one very brief, 50 to 75 words is perfect. Keep one of those handy that you can use for conferences as well as promotion. And also have a longer one. I find when people have publicists, they like maybe a full page bio that they can put in print materials. Have a press quote, a nice credit. This is your bragging rights. I'm sure some of you have a nice quote from a famous artist or someone in the press or a DJ that you can use. Have a link to a good current YouTube. Yes, current, not 15 years ago, something that looks the way you look now. And my preference is something that shows how you look on stage, so we can get a good idea with what your show is going to be looking like versus promotional video that just shows a golden retriever running through a field of daisies, which is lovely too, but that doesn't tell me what do you look like on stage. A downloadable PDF version of your tour poster. Leave a space for the venue to enter the information and the logo. You might think, why should I have that for a streaming show? Well, it's another nice piece of promotion that someone like myself can take up and share on Facebook or put onto our website. We think this is really important. We're looking for this now. Video links to previous streamed concerts. Pick a couple that you did a nice job. Could be a YouTube, Facebook. That gives us an idea. What did your stream look like? How was your lighting, your background, and all? And also, if it's on Facebook or YouTube, we can have an idea of how many people were in attendance, and that gives us a great look as to what you've been doing. You might want to include a list of previous stream concerts, especially if you've been doing them in conjunction with venues. And you might want to put up there, I did one at Passim or Old Town School of Folk, Freight Salvage, Isis Music Hall, maybe just name a few. If you have average numbers of attendance for your live streams, you might want to include those, although I know it's been like this, in the beginning, the numbers were really high and they dipped and they're coming back up. But, you might want to say, I always bring 30 to 50 people into the room. I think that that's helpful. These are what we call promotional assets, materials. all of these should be contained in this press kit. And, we can answer questions about some of these a little more specifically later. So that's the promo section of your SEPK. And, let Bruce go ahead and tell us a little bit more about what should be in the tech part.
Great, thank you. Also, what this is not going to be is how to. There have been so many really wonderful presentations about how to do these things, what they are, the best practices, etc. So this is not what this is going to be. When I say tech, these are the things that you are technically capable of doing or technically have in your possession. As we get a little bit further down, Louise will switch over to what David Jacob Strain posts as part of his tech portion only, and it'll just be the tech and not the other assets, photos, descriptions, etc., but just that. List the equipment that you're using. If you're using some external microphones, if they're USB, if they're XLR, if you're using multiple cameras, so there'll be multiple camera angles, and if you're using audio interface. This is important to me as a talent buyer because it means to me that you've got a higher level of expertise. You don't have to tell me I have a high level of expertise. I can see that. You've differentiated between the types of microphones, that you are connecting them into an interface and running that into your computer so that I know that I'm going to get the best possible sound from you. So that's wonderful. Maybe you're using some external lighting in conjunction with any ambient lighting, or that you recognize that sound check, the room may look one way, but come showtime, the sun will have moved and your room will look a little bit different. So you've enhanced that with different lights. This does not have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be wattages, manufacturers, etc., but just that you do enhance your visual image with different lighting. Let people know that you can connect to an Ethernet. This is going to be important because as Brandon is fond of saying, what does he call it? The internet gods are a temperamental and finicky lot themselves. So we don't know, but Ethernet is going to be your best possible option and the best guarantee for strong connectivity throughout the computer. You might also list your upload strength. You can get this on Google. Just Google upload speed, and you'll get 2 or 3 links that can test your speed, and it's a good thing to know. You might want to also list the platforms that you have experienced with using. So, for example, if you've only used Facebook Live, don't add other stuff. This is not about puffing or fluffing up your resume. If you know how to use Facebook Live, say so. If you've used Zoom, if you've used Twitch TV, YouTube, etc., say what you've used. If you may want to put down that you prefer one format over the other, that's fine, but demonstrate proficiency. You don't know what your buyer is looking for until they contact you, but missing something may eliminate you from the possibility pools. If you're using different systems, for example, you like to use OBS out into Facebook, or you're using StreamYard because you're going to bring in another person as part of your show, these are all good. It shows a depth of understanding, a depth of knowledge. If you say, I use OBS because I want to put some overlays in, that's important. Louise will show you a picture a little bit later on where you can see the overlays in the presentation that's only available with certain systems. You may also have an assistant that works with you on a regular basis. It may be your partner. It may be someone that you live with. That person's job is to change the camera angles. That person's job is to operate the chat on your behalf. That person's job is to post your pay links or to say something about the venue throughout the performance that you as a performer cannot do. Also, know the parameters of your equipment. Know the parameters of a format and a platform. You really need to know this, not just be aware of it. If you're going to use it, know it. Know what can go wrong and how to fix that. So things do happen, and experience teaches us the best. All right, you're looking now at the stream. I beg your pardon. You're looking now at the tech abilities of David Jacob Strain. You see he uses multiple microphones. Some he uses for voice, some for instrumentation. He has not gone and told us what type of microphones they are, but just that he uses different manufacturers. So the model number is not that important. It's not important to me to know that you, for example, use, I don't know, I nothing comes to mind. So anyway, brand, manufacturer, and model number are not specific. It's only specific and important that you do recognize and have the ability and understand what these things are. David is proficient on Facebook Live, StreamYard, and Zoom. He also has access to two different recording studios as well as his own personal studio. So depending on what you're looking for, maybe you're looking for a bigger production, maybe the length of concert is going to be a little bit longer, maybe you got a co-bill. So he's got lots of options, and he talks a little bit about the lighting that he uses with additional cameras. David also typically performs as a duo with Bob Beach. Now, Bob lives in Pennsylvania, David lives in Oregon, but they are able to perform a concert with both on the set or both in the performance at the same time, and he's letting you know that, and it can go either way. And then he's got some links that are available right there on request. You can highlight them and look at them, etc. But again, know your platform and know your gear. Louise is going to talk now about some of the financial things that should be in your EPK as well.
Okay, yes, and I just wanted to mention that I think a lot of you saw Jamie Harris do her tech talk, and she got into a lot of the specifics about the manufacturers and different types of microphones and lighting. And, that is not our expertise, but we definitely suggest that you have a list like Bruce just went over that we have put together, that David has put together for us to use to promote him. Okay, financial. That's important too. Right now, it's very important to all of us that we understand the income possibilities here of the live streams. In a normal EPK, you want to have a W-9 available somewhere. If you're going to get paid, the venue is going to want to send you a 1099. Now house concerts such that's under the radar, no. But I suggest that you go to irs.gov, get a W-9, fill it out, and have a PDF that is easy to send. I've had times where an artist just didn't really want to do that and share it until they got to the venue, which is fine, but it can hold up you getting paid, and we don't want that to happen. Have links to your payment platforms available to share for PayPal, Venmo, Square. A number of artists I've seen have a donation page on the website, which I think is excellent, that can be clicked on, opened up, and people can make their contributions and donations there. Be sure to use the full secure URL for ease in clicking. We have learned this the hard way. People have to copy and paste and leave your stream. They might not come back in, or they just might not want to do it. So you want to have that full link with HTTPS. The S is for secure. Check that, make sure that you have one set up like that so that you can provide that. We ask for those all the time for Bruce's series, and I get PayPal links in all shapes, forms, and varieties, and then I go and make sure I can find the URL, because we want folks that come to the Zoom showcase to be able to click, go right into PayPal, and make that donation. Also have an agreement. Again, I keep saying normal times, pre-COVID, and I know there are some agents in the audience that I've worked with very successfully over the years. And, a contract's really important, and contracts are shifting and changing right now for virtual shows. Excuse me, but excuse me. You do want to have a contract and a glass of water handy where you can confirm all the details. And that could be an email or just a detail sheet. And in there you want to discuss, the start time. Is there a sound check? And also, is there a split? If you're going to be doing something for a benefit of a venue and you've offered to send them back 50, 20%, be sure that you have that specified. And you also talk about who's going to pay whom. Many of the shows now, the funds come in directly to your tip jar, the artist, and then you're going to send your portion back to the venue or the series, or maybe even to some type of charity. But be sure that that's specified and that you follow through and send that money. No one wants to walk out of a show after you played it without your check in hand. And conversely, if a venue's helping you out, be sure to send their portion, when you're done. Talk about upfront. Do you want to do it ticketed with paywall? Is it by donation? And just be sure that you're pretty clear how you're all going to settle up, on that part of it. That is pretty much covering the financial. And I'm going to see if I can stop the share here. And then Bruce, we're going to talk a little bit about the stage. Hang on just a second. There we go. We're just going to talk a little bit more about what happens when you're doing the show, a little bit of the show etiquette. We feel is additional help for helping you for getting future gigs both virtually and in the real world. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the stage. Oh, I forgot to show the end of that slideshow, didn't I? Let's go back just a second, because we had something fun there to show you. If I can find it again. Bear with me a second here. Okay. Oops. I'm showing that I don't know how to do this.
I think it was working, Louise.
Was it?
Yeah, when you hit the play button, it brought up the screen. Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. Okay, these we just wanted to show you a few of the photos that we've taken from some of the stream shows that we've conducted, give you an idea of the backgrounds. I think most of these folks, and they had really either Scott Ainsley's got that really professional dark background, Rebecca's got her own paintings, Abby Posner there with her instruments, and on the bottom there you'll see the black feathers. And I put that one up because they use OBS for overlays, where you'll see they have their logos on the bottom. And they've done shows for 3 different venues and put all their logos in the screen. And I thought that was great. Probably a lot of you know how to do that, but that really looks great. And then, we're not sure about this. A lot of us have our back room in our house that looks like this right now, but might not be the best place to do a live stream. All right, so that's just a little bit of looking at your surroundings, what's behind you, thinking about natural light. You might want to let your family members and your pets know that you're going to be presenting a live stream. So if you want them to come in on purpose, you have a really cute puppy or child or something that you want to show, plan on that. But we've seen a few times when pets or people have bombed the set, and it's kind of caused a little bit of a disruption. If you're in a room that has a lot of hard surfaces, high ceilings, lots of glass, bring in some extra rugs, comforters, hang something over a ladder or a curtain, make it a little bit warmer. It definitely helps with the sound. And you might think a little bit about your setting. Have some candles in the background. I see a lot of people using strings of Christmas lights or whatever to create a better atmosphere. And think about your attire. In the beginning, we were seeing a lot of PJs and sweats, not so much now. So those are just a few ideas about setting up your stage. Bruce, do you want to hop on for a little more?
Yeah, if you've been to the Tuesday concerts that we host, you'll notice that that stage is quite a bit different than the one I'm presenting to you now. This is really to demonstrate that you might not care what's behind you, but people are going to at some point pay more attention to the calendar over here and the projects I'm working on and the stickers that we put up on the calendar and what am I doing and what am I reading, and not so much focusing on myself or the fact that I've just put on whatever I was wearing yesterday and it doesn't really matter. So this was done to be intentional, and they compare that to the way Louise has presented herself with a nice background, dressed professionally. The lighting is really important and has taken a little bit of extra time and care in the product that she's demonstrating. Again, this was to purposely demonstrate the juxtaposition between wanting to do a good job and caring about what's coming out of your mouth or what's coming out of your instruments, but not taking a couple of extra moments to look at the whole project and differentiate you from your competition. Your competition is paying attention. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move into it. But let's do talk about sound check. So you've got the gig booked, and you want now to present yourself virtually. And in any gig, you would show up maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, whatever it is, prior to sound check, and you would do a sound check. You would want it, and the venue would want it. Same thing with virtual. Perhaps your voice is not coming as clearly as it should be. Maybe your settings are off. Maybe you're not that familiar with Zoom and you forgot to turn on your original sound, et cetera, et cetera. So do the sound check. If you can have somebody else listening in, a third party, or maybe some of the other artists on the bill can listen in. You can help each other solve each other's problems, and work back and forth that way. But it's really important. And be on time. You know, if you wonder where they got the name for the 6 o'clock news, it's because it starts at 6 o'clock. That's how they got the name for it. And it always starts at 6 o'clock. So be on time. We talked about being sure to schedule a sound check and have someone else watching you. Now, you can also do that in addition to the sound check for the venue or for the performance. You can do it with a friend. Make sure your gear is working, and you can even use that as a little bit of a promo for this evening's event. So, for example, I tested my microphone earlier today. I did a little Instagram post about tonight's concert. Because the settings are going to change from platform to platform, or maybe with piece of gear to piece of gear, you can keep a notebook and write down the settings, where you started from. Maybe you want your faders all the way back on the mixer. Maybe you don't use this particular microphone. Maybe you've forgotten that within Zoom you can adjust the output and the input, what you're hearing as well as what you're putting out. And that's going to be the paramount one for Zoom, and where you started off with on any particular day. It's a good thing to keep these things track. You can again call a friend and say, let's run through this and just let me know how I sound, because I can't necessarily hear myself as well. You might want to also have some props. So if you're using, for example, a Blue Yeti tabletop microphone, have something you can prop it up in, because your voice may not be as clear, or the guitar may be competing with it too much. So you may want to prop that up, and it's good to have a book or two nearby so you can get that extra elevation. If possible, and your musicianship or what you're playing lends itself to, stand up. If you stand up, you're probably going to sound better, you're going to look better, and consequently, you're going to make more money. It's that simple. So let's let Louise talk a little bit about showtime etiquette.
Sure. These are things you would probably do in an in-person show anyway, but be sure to do your thank yous if you're starting a stream. And again, if it's in conjunction with a host venue, thank them for being invited to do it. Tell everyone, how your tour has been devastated, but the venues are hurting too. So, to consider donating and helping. Also, if you have a tech person, a buddy there with you, or that's someplace else helping you run the tech, give them a shout out. And you might just thank your agent too. We appreciate it. And I've got to say, and I've talked to so many of my fellow agents, we're all working 3 times as hard for like hardly any money now, but we're also watching these shows, and we're on the chat at night, where we didn't used to go to all of our clients' gigs. We simply couldn't do it. But, a little shout out to your agent is great. Just some little things. Some people, I think, spend a little too much time reading the chat, and, they have their face way down in. I like it better when the show just keeps going, and then maybe they stop at one moment to read it. And again, it's great to have a buddy that can write something down like, Ann Saunders is on the stream, give her a shout out, or, something that really needs to be said, versus you spending too much time focusing on the chat when you want to be focusing on your performance. Be sure your tip jars have the clickable links. You can rattle them a few times during the show, or better yet, have an assistant or a buddy do that for you, and remind people how important it is, if possible, to make a donation. And, when you are listing your donation links and such on your Facebook stream, be sure to put that at the very top, because Facebook will cut it off, and you want people to be able to see your payment links. It's very important to get that up there soon. I'll let Bruce wrap up. It's been wonderful to have this opportunity. We've been through things pretty quickly, but we've been doing 7 months of shows on his venue. I've done about 4 months of shows, live stream shows at ISIS Music Hall. And we've seen a lot of things that have worked out great. We've seen some things that we thought, oh gosh, if only we had had a time to talk to this artist ahead of time, it might have gone better. So that's what we're trying to do, just be helpful, and we appreciate you all so much.
I certainly echo the thanks for the opportunity. But here's the deal, guys. This streaming is not going anywhere. The venues are not reopening tomorrow morning. This is not a 2-week common cold. Your competition is already after the venues that you play in, the house concerts that you do. They're looking at what you're doing, and they're letting other people know what they do differently or better or more aggressively. So you really want to manage the expectations of your audience, your host. This is really key stuff. And again, this pandemic is going to be here for a long time. We know that 20 is over because the calendar says it's November. The pundits are saying that 21 is probably not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. I don't want to throw a wet blanket on it, but that's the reality. And so many people are really looking hard at the beginning of 22 or the very late spring, late summer, late fall of 21. But by and large, the big gigs are not going to happen the same way. So if you're able to demonstrate that you have an ability to do this quickly, cleverly, comprehensively, professionally, you're going to get the gigs that other people aren't getting, because our time is as precious now as it was before. And when I say that there's 3 to 5 minutes, Louise takes a lot more time getting to know than I get to know. I get to know fast, and if it's difficult, it's makes it just that much more challenging. And it's not the kind of challenge that I'm looking for. I like things that are simple, comprehensive, clear, easy to understand, easy to read. But I do think managing your expectations is important, both for you, for your audience, and for your hosts. So if you have a host, find out in advance, is the host going to introduce you? Are they going to ask you some questions and answers? Are they going to say goodnight to everybody at the end of your show? Will they ask you for an encore? How long do they want the show to go? If you're a jammer and you can play for 4 or 5 hours, I promise you the lion's share of your audience will not last that long. You want to tell your audience, how long are you going to perform for? This is where my tip links are. Thank you very much for coming. Be gracious and stick to your plan. So manage the expectations. And I'm sure, I hope you have some questions, and we haven't yammered on too long. But again, thanks for coming, and good luck to you. And we're happy to consult you and take some one-offs afterwards. But let's see what we missed or didn't explain clearly enough.
Oh my goodness, you guys, you went, first of all, virtual waving of the hands, applause. Thank you very much for this really great information. To me, it was above and beyond the expectations from my end. So I think that's a good message right there. I loved all your advice at the end there as well. I was writing down that we probably should have called this "How to Be Prepared." Like that preparation is like your streaming EPK, but in addition to being prepared for your show and beyond that, I think this is all really excellent advice. And I honestly don't think we can hear it enough. So thank you,
thank you
for that. We do have a couple of questions. I'm going to start with, and we have people just arriving who are going to be sad they missed all that. So they're going to have to go back and watch.
Right.
If you're watching on Facebook, by the way, folks, you can go ahead and put a question in the chat. And I think our farm board president-elect, Charlie Mossbrook, is floating around in there, and maybe I can pester him to go pay attention to Facebook and see if somebody's actually asking questions out there. But so, okay, I can't find the question. So let's just start with the hand raised. I'm going to look at Mrs. Sue Fink. You've got your hand up, my friend, and I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And we're just going to drop you in the spotlight so we can see your face a little better.
Hi, Sue.
Hey, Sue.
This has been very interesting to me, and especially the part about the venue, because I thought that the venues would have a protocol or a platform that they use and ask you to join them for that. I've been kind of doing my own shows, like being my own virtual venue. So but like I played at the coffee house and they said, we're using StreamYard. We're going to send you a link. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And they had a sound guy. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that the venues, and I know Two Way Street does that also, that's not the case. That could you elaborate on that?
Well, sure. Some do and some don't. There are, with our artists, we booked them at various places, and some say we're going to do it on StreamYard and put it out to Facebook. We only want to do YouTube. It really depends. That's why we think it's so valuable if you know all of these tools. The ones that I have done at the ISIS Music Hall, I set up my own online series called Mountain Spirit Acoustic. And I started off in the beginning saying, whatever you're good at, I can accommodate. Now, I love Zoom and I prefer to run it on Zoom because of the interactive nature.
Yeah.
But if my artist that wants to play there says, I am just totally comfortable on Facebook Live. And again, if there's no paywall, you have to consider all those things. So yeah, I think, Sue, there are definitely some of the venues that have already set up their protocol that if you want to play here, we're going to coordinate it on this platform. But then having those tools to send them. So, if you're going to do a particular venue and they say we're going to use StreamYard, but to promote you and all, you can say, great, here's my SEPK, there's all the things you need. So I think it varies greatly in venues all over the place. Some will say whatever you want, and others will say, no, it's got to be YouTube, it's got to be Zoom.
Also, by demonstrating these abilities, it may beg a question that might have gotten you to know. In other words, if you show that you're demonstrating proficiency in StreamYard or Zoom, they might say, why? Well, I've got an accompanist that I can bring in. I forgot to put that on the SEPK. I think whenever you can get people talking and going beyond the I'd like to play your venue dialogue, you enhance the opportunity and the possibility of getting to yes. I mean, we all know that no is the second best word, but not much beats yes.
Right.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. Interesting. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue.
I'm sorry, I got distracted, you guys. Believe it or not, I think I got our first bomber,
Oh, no.
but they couldn't do anything because I had my security settings correct.
We had one a few weeks ago too.
It was a weird, I don't know
Hilarious.
how that happened with the registration process, but we'll just let that go. And if you weren't a bomber, I apologize if I just kicked you out. So sorry. So, thanks, Sue. Okay, so back to the questions. Eileen actually has a really good question. She said she just recently performed live with her headset on. Is that professional?
I don't think that it's unprofessional. It can be a bit of a distraction from a visual standpoint. Louise is wearing earbuds and her hair is tucked over them. My hair is pulled back and I've got earbuds on. Some of the platforms with Zoom, I think, favor headphones. It's easier for you to use that. I don't think it's unprofessional, and if it enhances your performance, it's fine. I don't think it's going to be there at the beginning and the end, so it's not going to come off and on, off and on, off and on, and so that becomes a distraction.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's fine, and I think a lot of people that are using an interface really have to do that so that they can hear themselves and then also hear, any other interaction. Sometimes they'll push it off one ear. No, I don't think that's a problem at all. I see it often, and it doesn't bother me.
Okay. So, Andrew, thanks. And there you go, Eileen. She said she just did her first Zoom. She did wait a minute, where is it? She did, anyways, because of our tech talks, she did her first Zoom concert.
Yay!
Yeah, me too.
Congrats.
Andrew McKnight is asking, on the poster, social media images are primarily 1720 or 1280 by 720. Are y'all still finding uses for more traditional 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17 layouts? That's what sometimes you put those things on your press kit, right? Your downloadable
Yes.
posters. Do you think those are irrelevant at this point? That's a great question.
Not really. And hi, Andrew. Andrew taught me a lot of things early on. He's a sharp guy with all of this. I think it's great to have them available. I have someone who did a streaming show at ISIS who's actually coming over to do a socially distanced live show soon. And he had the posters all ready to go. And yeah, a regular PDF poster that size is not compatible with a lot of Facebook. That's why we are going to be learning more Canva, right? That's coming up. But again, if you're doing for instance, like Susquehanna Folk is doing a nice series, and they have a full page of every streaming show that they're doing, and they'll put a poster image on there right there that can be used to further promote. I think it's great to have it. You might need it down the road, but still also you want to have some size just right for Facebook posts as well.
Cool.
So good question. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, it was a good question. We're getting some really good questions, but I'm going to go to Anne DeChant, who has Anne, you have your hand raised, and I wasn't sure if that was because of the question you chatted me earlier or if you still have a question. So if you do,
no, it was because of the question that we chatted earlier.
Oh, okay.
So but I will say there've been some good pointers in this presentation with respect to the streaming. I've actually done quite a few live streams. Ran it for weeks immediately when COVID started, and I'm continuing to do that. But there's still some things to put on the EPK that I had not thought about, and so it's been quite helpful.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Anne.
And we had another one. Dang, nubbit. Somebody named Peter. I'm sorry, you guys. This is new to me. I mean,
okay.
of all the times we've been doing this, it's somebody, he's just writing salmon. I don't really understand bombers. I really don't. Okay.
Well, that's better than the experience we had, I can assure you.
Yeah, they're probably following us. Yes.
But again, now I'm really curious to know how they got in, because I did post the registration link. Right. But you have to fill out a registration form. And so okay, anyway, moving on. Mark Smith, ask your question, my friend.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Where'd you go?
Hi, it's more of a comment about we had looked at doing streaming from the synagogue that we present at.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem we ran into was we couldn't hardwire it there. And the Wi-Fi was just horrible. And so the other thing was that Rob from Iliami has a lot of paid work. And so he's less likely to do it for us for free.
Yeah, it's hard to take a Ford Pinto to the Formula One racing car circuit. It just doesn't work very well. You're really limited by what you've got, and sometimes you have to go outside of the location to present or upgrade your equipment. One of the things that we do in terms of upgrading is we set a little bit of money that comes in for overhead for that type of project. But if you don't have good connectivity, it's not going to happen by magic. It's got to be invested in or change the location. Because here's the thing, if the connectivity is not good, the first reaction will be that the audience will start communicating amongst themselves. Are you having problems? Are you having problems? And if you get more than 2 or 3 people saying yes, it's now the venue's fault. And so all the people that you have worked so hard to bring in are going to be less patient or less willing the next time around. So I really think that knowing your gear and having good gear, if you're going to put out a product, is so important.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
Question.
I have a very good question, and I just want to, I think it's Charlie Mossbrook is in a wheelchair. He's a performer in a wheelchair. So obviously he's not able to stand for his performances. He's just asking, I think he's genuinely asking, would it make sense for him to make sure his wheelchair is in there so people understand why he's sitting? It's a performance thing,
I think. I'm sorry, Louise, you go.
It's really a personal preference. I don't play very often, and so I'm out of practice. So when I do, I stand up so I can sing better. I think it's really more about your background. I've seen people sitting in everything from, an ergonomic desk chair to a couch. And if the couch looks really nice, it's in a good setting, that's fine. If, the clothes that need to be folded are on the back of the couch, not so much. And yes, I think whatever is in your life that's important, and for Charlie to have the wheelchair visible, I think is totally fine. And again, I talked about, you want it to be comfortable, you want it to be you. And if it's really important to have that dog at your feet and, for a moment he pokes his head up and you pat his head, it might make people feel really great. When my cat runs across the keyboard and pulls my headset out, that's not so good. So yeah, I mean, the standing looks nice, but when Charlie's on stage, he's performing in the wheelchair, so he should totally be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Sure.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to go to Laura McKenzie's question, and she was talking about what is the best concert length. I think this is a great question. So you mentioned something about how long, and when you're performing live and you have 2 sets and there's people milling about and there's things to do, like, do you find that they should be shorter these days?
Well, here's the question. If you're at a venue, why are you doing 2 sets? You're probably doing 2 sets so you can stretch your legs, so you can get to the merch table, so that you can either change your instrumentation or give your audience a break so that they can get to the merch table. If you're performing on behalf of a venue, again, ask the venue what they customarily do. Maybe you've seen some programming at their venue, and that's that. But I think I've been to a lot of concerts over the years, and lucky, and I always want to hear the songs I'm looking forward to, but I'm also equally as excited about not hearing the ones that I really wanted to, because it makes me want to come back. So I think 60 to 70 minutes is probably a good measure. On the streaming concerts that we do on Tuesday nights, we have 20-minute performances, but again, those are showcase performances, and they're meant to be short, comprehensive, and not a full-length concert. So I think start with the venue. If you're working with a venue, ask them what they want. And then I think, I don't know, Louise, we are all experiencing an awful lot of screen fatigue as well as fanny fatigue. And the longer shows, it's, are you going to watch War and Peace, or are you going to watch a short action film?
Yeah, I agree. The ones that I do for ISIS Music Hall, I say 60 to 75 minutes. And we didn't really get into this, but we're finding more and more adding a little bit of chat, a Q&A if it's on Zoom or StreamYard or some way you can interact with the host. Our wonderful friend Don White often brings in a guest at the end. Adding a little bit of something else might make the show go longer, but to have a solo performer on for like an hour and a half on a live stream, with some exceptions, after a while, it's like, okay, you might lose a little of the audience. Now, the audience can stretch their legs, use the bathroom, go get ice cream, not in the real world. But I would say normally no more than an hour and a half at the very most, but closer to an hour if it's just a solo performance.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I want to add a little bit to that from my personal perspective as a viewer, because I think so often I miss a show and I'll go back and watch it, but I rarely can sit through the whole thing. And I think we are in a situation of a wealth of riches, right now, where we have so many opportunities and our attentions are being, kind of pulled. So I do personally, for me, that shorter shows, keep me, like, I think, oh, good, I can make a half an hour right now work, and I can watch this also. But of course, I can also come back and watch the rest of the show later. So Friction Farm is asking, is there etiquette around how close together in time ticketed or venue sponsored shows an artist should play?
Well, if you're playing in your kitchen every Thursday, that's totally fine with me. I just want to be invited over.
Yeah.
It's a little inside. Well, they live right down the road from us a bit. But I think for it, that's a big question. And for right now with geocoding and all of that, it's really hard to say. It's probably a good idea for your own fan base not to play, you don't want to play 2 or 3 a week. This is something I think we're all struggling with. I'd say 2 or 3 a month, no problem with that. And if you are working in coordination with the venue, if it's regional, one night you're getting hosted by Sundilla in Auburn, that's great. And the next night you're getting hosted by Six on the Square in Oxford, New York, or Two-Way Street, or someplace that's totally different. I think that's fine. I don't know, Bruce, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I do. I think that I think geocoding is the ability to target a specific geographic area, so that we could say we're going to target this area, and nothing else outside of that area can see the show. And I don't know how that works, but it works. And that, I think, is going to be coming down the pike. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think it also affords you an opportunity to talk about upcoming shows. But here's the question. If you're bringing all your fans to the venue and the venue's not bringing any of their fans, that's a problem. And I think that does set in and create fan fatigue and oversaturation, I think is the word I was looking for. But for example, if you're playing 2 or 3 venues across the country and each one has its own sort of built-in audience, play every night, I think, if you can.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. The geocoding is an issue because right now somebody can watch a show, and like I can watch a show in Chicago where I couldn't have before. So, you may have fans in that area, but yeah, that's a good question. Sorry. Okay, Brenda, we're running down on the time here, but Brenda's got a good question too. And I'm not sure, with all the live stream shows, when a price is not suggested, what is the going rate for a tip when performers, if performers are performing for tips, how much money are people expecting for an hour live stream show? And boy, that sounds like a whole other tech talk.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big subject, but we try to say, consider paying what you would have spent on a ticket tonight. And sometimes I also want to say, and remember, there would have been 2 of you and parking and a couple of beers or whatever. But if we just simply say that, and they know, well, most folk shows now, you're going to be paying anywhere from 15 to probably 25 for it, 1 ticket. But we see all types of donations, and we all know there's sometimes a $5 and there's sometimes $100. I don't know. I think a comfortable range, if you want to suggest something, is probably $15, 15 to 20. And it depends on the artist.
Yeah, I think it's a really a broad topic, and it's something that we've certainly wrestled with, because it cuts both ways. If you say I only want $15, then that might be what you get. We have said if you ask, if you're concerned, and I do get questions periodically as you've asked, what's the going rate? And Louise's answer, I think, is very apropos. Think about what you would pay for that particular artist. Maybe if you didn't know the artist, you wouldn't have gone in the first place. But maybe you taking a chance with somebody, and maybe a $10 would have been a good price. We have 4 artists every night, and I don't expect each person to pay what they would have paid for any one of those times 4. And yet there are people that are huge fans of live music and have the ability and the means to be generous. So you don't want to dissuade them. And also, I never want anybody to send money that's going to cause them financial hardship later on in the week. And it is folk music. So part of me embraces those that are in need. And maybe this is a good week for you. Maybe next week's not such a good week. So you've got some money this week and you don't have it next week. And there's the uninvited guest that we chatted about earlier, the ones that bomb, the welcome dog versus the unwelcome dog. So I don't know that there's any steadfast answer. I think let your conscience be your guide, or say to people, what would you contribute or what would you pay for a reasonable ticket? And Louise is absolutely right. First of all, there's one of you. If 2 of you are sitting in the room, there's still one of you. If there's 2 drinks in the room, there's still one of you. And the free parking is well, everybody gets free parking at music my mother wouldn't like. So that's the long answer. I think $10 to $15 to $20 is about the average donation. Mm-hmm. I can tell you down to the penny what our average is. It's about $12.98 per person or per registration. Because again, I don't know how many people are in front of any given device, or if they've used the same registration at multiple devices, but that's the average.
Well, we have 44 people in this room right now, of course, not including the 3 of us. That would be 41. Sorry, it's pathetic. It took me that long to come up.
New math, Annie.
New math. I'm like, wait a second, minus how many fingers? But that would be 41 times 5.
205.
Thank you, Bruce. I was going to say actually that there's been like you could play a tour of shows, and get a different attendance and get different ticket price, a different everything night. So I don't know that there's an average in this world ever, I mean, I think it could be different whether we
Yeah, I think it's
or
good.
otherwise, right?
It's a good to bring something up. One night early on in Bruce's showcase, a woman privately chatted me about this particular artist she had come for, and she said, "So does the money that she gets tonight, does that pretty much cover for her tour?" And I said, not for her tour, for maybe one show. And I just threw out some numbers. I said, well, this person usually plays about 200 nights a week and probably makes between $800 to $1,200 a night. And this person was like, oh my gosh, wow. They don't realize
Yeah.
how devastating this is. And if you do a live stream one night and you get $300 or $400, that's nice because you didn't have to leave home, but it is nothing compared to what you were earning on the road.
And
So
as you say, because you can't do as many shows, right? You can't really get away with doing as many shows, I suppose, that way.
yeah.
Yeah, there are some artists that have that do perform every single night. They've got a loyal fan base, and some nights are better than other nights. And part of what they're doing is specifically to their Patreon accounts. Part of it's about getting new audiences. I think for some people, they find great comfort in getting in front of what they believe to be an audience every single night. So it's very soothing for them. But yeah, I mean, think about the distances that you'd be traveling.
Yeah.
So, and a $15 ticket in New York City is not a $15 ticket in Austin, Texas, or Chicago. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I plopped my mug on the screen because we are a little past the hour, and we're so Sue, you got a very quick question, and because I have a big long Michael, I am going to skip your question, but because what I'm going to do is talking about money right now. We have a community peer session on Thursday at 2:00. And that might be a very interesting topic for a breakout room at the peer session for folks who want to just sort of stretch out on this very subject, because it does sort of move us a little bit away for what we came to talk about today.
Sure.
So, Michael, you'll show up Thursday and lead that conversation. And there's some other things. So, yeah. And Sue, you got a quickie? Go ahead. You got to unmute. Yeah.
There we go. So my quickie question is, you were talking about, and thank you guys so much. This has been really, really helpful. When you were talking about the negotiating, like with the venues, some of the venues keep their video of you up forever and ever. And how do you feel? I mean, are you supposed to? I don't know. Never mind. Kind of. Do you know what I'm saying?
That doesn't sound like a
Might
quick.
not be a quickie.
Yeah. All right.
Might be a longer question, but it's a good one, because now I mean, I would say maybe you're saying that now you have opportunity to make more money the longer that sits up there if somebody is looking at it and they decide to tip months later. But if the venues take, I don't need this.
I actually did do that with a venue. I think it was a major venue, and I saw a show later, and I donated, and I put in the comments for that artist, and then I got an email thanking me for donating to a completely different artist, because I'm sure you can't keep it straight with all that going on. And so I would just, anyhow, do people, whatever.
Yeah, that's confusing. You can use PayPal pools for a specific artist, and just really quick, if most of the time I've let the artist take the money, and we say let the dust settle. So let's give it 3 or 5 days, and if they say this is what I have in, here's your percentage, I'm not expecting that if they get another $20 a week from now, they have to give me any of it. So yeah, that's a little bit of a toughie, but set some parameters up.
But it's a good question, and it's something that you want to get out of the way in front of the show. It's managing the expectations. It's talking about that agreement. At the end of my show, what happens to the video? Who owns the video? I take the position on Music My Mother Wouldn't Like that it's my content. I own it. It's your art, it's your music, but I own the content. Now, what I do at the end of the show is I make it available to the artists only, and I don't care what they do with it. If they can monetize it, wonderful. I put them up on my YouTube channel to sort of enhance that, and I put them up very, very slowly. But they're on Facebook. I mean, I think they're all but 2 are on Facebook, and that was some technical glitches that we had that it just didn't schedule up correctly. But they're all up there. And I know one artist, for example, who did a bunch of stream concerts, and then she played her entire catalog of records, 1 record at a time each week. And then she recycled them for a watch party. And I said, how does that work? And she said, you'd be surprised. I mean, sometimes I get 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 people in the chat room. We just bullshit a little bit back and forth, and they throw money in. Or I turn on Netflix. You know, when somebody comes on, I turn off Netflix and I get in the chat room and we just watch the video run. If they've got a question, I answer it. So you can recycle your own work to your own advantage. But I really think the biggest thing is managing the expectations. What are your expectations as an artist? And you want to know what the venue's expectations are. I know some artists are really specific, and they have very, very strong feelings about what's going to happen to their content at the end of the night. Who owns it? Where does it go? What are you going to do with it? So get it out of the way.
Is that on your handout stuff?
It should be.
Yeah.
We may add
You
that.
know, I think we have to add that.
Sue's going to get a co-write.
Yeah. Speaking of handouts and all of this stuff, so there's been some really also good comments in here. And again, I have to just say that the reason I put the chat as just to me is so that I don't get confused by conversations while I'm trying to filter the questions. So I hope you understand that that's why you can't necessarily respond to somebody directly. But I appreciate all your comments. Thank you very much for sharing. But yes, we have shared the link to these 2 documents. I uploaded the 2 you sent me, Louise, to a Google Drive, which I have put a link to for you all to download in their current state. And then maybe if there's an update, we'll go ahead and send an email to everybody who attended today and even post it on our website. This was incredibly helpful. And I'm so grateful to both of you, because really we started out as streaming EPK, but it was all of this stuff relates back to how you present yourself, right? With like creating your brand or whatever it is, and how you present yourself out there to sell yourself, and that should go right back to that EPK, right?
Sure. I mean, like, what's the easiest gig to get, and what's the toughest gig to get, assuming your parents aren't alive anymore and can do house concerts for you? The easiest ones to get are to go back to the gigs that you've already done well. Mm-hmm. So manage the expectations going in, manage the expectations coming out, and it's easier to get back in. It's just much easier. And I'm sure from Louise's standpoint, it's much easier to work with people that you know. Mm-hmm. And you might be willing to make an allowance for something, but if you know that person, you know what they're capable of, that's low-hanging fruit for both of you.
Yeah, it makes it easier. And we're available through, our links there for follow-up on some of these questions, and we do some coaching on some of these items as well. And we'd love to have you come and watch any of our shows and shoot us some questions anytime. We're so honored. Thank you.
Wonderful. You have a show coming up, I know, and I hope that we will see all your lovely faces on Thursday at 2:00. We are going to hold, I'm going to gallery view us right now. Okay. So that everybody can wave their hands in appreciation for our lovely speakers, Louise Baker and Bruce Swan. Everybody,
thank you for coming.
Plus, this is always really fun to have out there on the Facebook land. Your tiny itty bitty little faces. So Thursday, 2:00. If you're already registered for a past one, you'll get a reminder, community peer session. We are going to keep this one to an hour, so be on time because SURFA is also hosting a really wonderful workshop at 3:00 Eastern time on how to conduct a compelling interview, which I think is also a really great collaborative thing and wonderful topic. So I hope you will check there out, surfa.org, SERFA, our sister region to the south. Louise and Bruce are in the Surfa region, aren't you guys?
Yes, I've been many times, Surfa, NERFA, but I'm loving farm right now.
And we're all from the same big fat community.
We are. We're all in the community.
Thank you all so much for being here. I hate this part. I hate the farewell. I hate the goodbye, but we have to do it. We must move on. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you all very soon, I hope. Thanks again, Louise and Bruce. You guys are great.
Thank you.